If you're a business owner or senior manager, you probably had more than enough about all the wonderful opportunities awaiting you in the era of digitalization.
Whether it is big data, cloud, data science, or whatever buzzword is currently trendy.
If you would like to hear someone dissecting these claims and showing you what it actually takes to improve business processes, you're in the right place.
This is Between Data and Risk, where we discuss real-life examples of what works and what doesn't in the world of business operations. Hello, I'm Artur Cognition Shared Solutions Chief Risk and Strategy Officer, and with me is my co-host, your friendly neighborhood data guy, Dr. Marian Siwiak.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome to the 8th episode of Between Data and Risk, and today we'll be talking about federated business governance. It's a topic that has been created or extended, should I say, from federated governance within data, a concept which has actually been introduced in Data Mesh by Zhamak Dehghani, and has been described by you, Marian, and your co-authors in a book, Data Mesh in Action, published by Manning, or soon to be published. So why don't you kind of introduce us to the concept of federation of governance and how it actually began?
Sure. This chapter was actually mine. So I think I am entitled, so to speak, to speak about it. In Data Mesh, federated data governance is connected to the word computational, so it comes as a federated computational governance. However, my interest lies mainly in the federalization, so to speak, of governance. It means that there are two levels of responsibility for governance. There is a central governance, which is aimed at providing the cross-organization and central level policies and rules and standards and norms, and the local level of governance, where data product owners are responsible for governance of data within their domains. So the computational word means that it should be automated. However, as I said, what we discussed when we were writing this book with my co-authors was how to decide what should be the rules or thresholds of moving responsibilities to either central unit or leaving it in the hands of business units. And we decided that there is no one good answer. There is no silver bullet solution. It very much depends on the business. And as we try to write our book to be as inclusive as possible, and our definitions we try to create as inclusive as possible, we decided that one should think about it as a slider. So there are some responsibilities on the central side or the local side, and these responsibilities can be shifted from one to another depending on the business needs of the organization. But in short, the idea is that you need to have the split of power. Very often, local business units have their own, let's say, goals and ways of doing things, which may not be optimal for the global organization. Let's say it could be that some business units would prefer to use some standards. They are more, handy for them, or they have a team which already is familiar with them. But pushing them across the organization wouldn't make sense. The central team role is to balance all the input from the local teams and find a consensus which will be optimal for on the global level. We are sometimes asked when we speak with our clients, when we provide some guidance on data architecture, like, okay, but why do we need a separate central governance body? And the answer is, if you will create a central governance body composed of just representatives of local units, it's confederated actually, rather than federated governance, and you risk that the influence of the stronger players will take over the good of the whole organization. I think we spoke about it multiple times, how to ensure that some solutions which are good for the whole company are being pushed through when everybody is looking at only about their own business, their own business unit, so to speak.
And I think this is the biggest advantage of federation, that on one hand, you are stopping the loudest, or most obnoxious players from taking over and pushing their agenda. On the other hand, you are preventing, by actually having some central governance, you're preventing total anarchy, where everyone does what they please, and it's a nice kind of combination of the two that ensures that there's consensus where it needs to be, but allows certain autonomy.
I almost agree. One thing that I would like to say straight, I wouldn't want to use derogatory verbiage on those who are, let's say, strongly opinionated, so to speak. They don't have to be obnoxious. It doesn't have to be, having an influence doesn't have to be a negative thing. It can be played out.
It's just, some of the meetings I had come to my mind where the people being the loudest.
There is an interesting podcast about it, Harnessing the Power of Influence, by the One Thing podcast, where they are discussing how to harness this power of people who are driving. We spoke about ego, and we spoke in our previous podcast, and we spoke about this leadership role in teams, or when you treat teams as individuals as well. There are some power plays, and there is a influence winning over. Some of these players, they might have absolutely best intentions, and they don't have to be very loud or obnoxious, as you said. They might have really good business reasons for pushing some solutions and good intentions. However, they just may not see the biggest picture. They can have more charisma. It's not only about loud and obnoxious. It's about also kind and charismatic and very reputable ones. I know what you're saying, but as I said, it's about this power of influence, and finding ways to harness it, to find a way for these people to really help others with their experience and goodwill, but still having someone whose role is explicitly to look at the bigger picture.
So we have actually written an article which will be linked in the notes to this episode about extending the concept of federated governance away from data and putting it into practice in business governance. This is, the concept is I think wildly applicable to almost any business, and the principles can be extended such that you bring policies on central level with the kind of individual self-governance on the local level. You give it the best effect with any area where you need this kind of split to achieve the best results. So if you can you give some example of where you see this working?
No, besides data, of course.
Yes.
I say
I won't let you off so easily.
Oh, I'm lazy. The sales, I think, I've seen it multiple times working for or with multinationals. That the specificity in marketing and sales, you have very specific markets requiring very specific communication, very specific solutions, and I've seen the cases where the communication was over centralized. And then the communication was failing on the local level because all the content, all the messaging, all was coined in the headquarters, and it was absolutely bouncing off cultural differences in separate markets. I've seen situations where there was a complete balkanization of effort, and it was really hard to find some common thread in and common brand, I would say, identity throughout the communication, because with this localization of efforts came discontinuity of efforts. So even on the local level, the differences in communication between different products within the same brand was so big that and changing over time that it was hard to speak about like the coherent brand communication. But I've seen examples where strong brand identity, like this core given or prepared at the central level, was executed and planned and governed on the local level, and it only added flavor. And it really allowed to embed the communication into the fabric of the society this messaging was prepared for, and it worked wonderfully. So I believe sales and marketing are very good example, because it's not only about the messaging; it's about governance of the whole effort. So leaving areas of responsibility, really.
There is another example which I found. Josh Berzin has described on his page a very interesting presentation about federated models of governance in HR, and how preparing learning programs and creating learning communities within a company to create networks of expertise rather than centers of excellence is a very good use case for federation. In his case, he describes how the central team provides the shared services, provides a kind of the general thrust of where this should go, but the individual business units tailor their own learning programs to their requirements, and provide this local flavor to what is actually needed, because they are best placed to know what training programs they actually require. So to manage this centrally would be probably very inefficient. So HR is also or talent management, probably I should say, is another very good example where this could be applied.
What you said, there is one very, very important thing that I should berate myself for not mentioning: shared services. We spoke about the governance and central level of governance as providing policies or standards, but also the central level is a very good place to enable local governance by providing them with knowledge and expertise, which may not be viable to provide for each and every local unit separately. So I don't know, legal services. Of course, as long as it doesn't create bottlenecks, we don't want to do that. So if there is a huge demand for services, if each and every business unit needs really a lot of time of given professional, they should probably source it themselves. But as long as it's something that you need from time to time and which is hard to find or source externally, then you should have your in-house friendly data guy who is able to support multiple teams, data science teams which are doing, let's say, the heavy lifting. You may have, I don't know, like someone who is on a bit different level, but usually we are talking about the legal, this kind of rare but necessary services, compliance, which are useful for everyone. As I said, this is the big problem. I think that this is. We should probably emphasize and maybe give some examples of how hard it is sometimes to drive a change, which is good for the whole company, but because it doesn't belong to any single business unit, it's hanging in the air and like there is no chance that it will be implemented. When we are talking about, I don't know, business process optimization.
So this brings me very nicely to the first principle, because I think we should keeping this practical. We should talk a few minutes about each of the principles of federated governance, and actually explain how to do it properly. So the first principle, as written in our article, is that federated model should be driven from the very top. And I think this is one, not the only, but one of the possible solutions of making a change in a company that doesn't really belong to a single unit or a single business, is that it should be driven from the highest management in the company. And a big change like moving from centralized model or distributed model into a federated model definitely should be driven from very high in the organization, because this is the only way you're going to ensure proper buy-in, proper understanding of the whole concept, and you're going to ensure success of the transformation.
It's true because we often talk about responsibilities and accountabilities. People are not very happy getting new accountabilities on themselves. Of course, there are notable exceptions, but in general, you cannot also pass accountability to your peers. Meaning, like you need to prepare people, and you may try to train them or prepare them. But if there is a central unit accountability from the ground up, you cannot build this accountability, because with accountability should come resources to really execute. So you can think of trying to build it from the ground up, but then you will have a bunch of frustrated people who try to take something as their responsibility, and their effort may be completely bombarded or disregarded by the central unit, which builds a frustration. It needs to be from the top, like the central team needs to agree to release some of the power.
Yeah, and the central team needs to understand the concept and not try to dress up their own power play, as federation needs to be true federation. On the other hand, on the local level, it will be a classic situation of who moved my cheese, right? People are comfortable with the way things were, and having this accountability thrust upon them is going to be frustrating. That's why it needs a kind of comprehensive influencing process.
Plus budgeting.
Yes.
Look that, it's easy to say now it's your responsibility or your accountability, but as long as it doesn't come with enabling operational enabling of the change, it's just making it somebody else's problem.
The second principle states that company-wide central governance should focus primarily on policies and value statements, leaving most of the implementation details to business units. And this kind of sounds to me like a very common sense principle of management, right? I could almost summarize it to don't micromanage, but as we've said, common sense is not very common, and I think it needs to be stated and repeated. If you are a high-level manager, be a high-level manager. You may be an expert, but trust your teams to actually drive the implementation, provide them with the direction, and let them go there. Don't push them.
Don't try to push down your stress as well. Don't make them run in circles. No, it's all true. What I think we should focus to be practical. I think the value statements from my consulting experience is a very, very underestimated tool. In the chapter of data mesh in action, we've been asked, because Manning is a very technical publishing house, and they were asking us, should we really spend so much time on explaining this? And I was adamant, yes, it's very underappreciated tool, because everybody thinks that value statement is just a buzzword that you drop into managerial environment to sound, I don't know, current or modern. Value statement is a construction allowing you to define the priorities. So whenever there is a decision to be made, and we, in our tri-layer business process analysis, we work with decisions on the decision level. These decisions need to have reasons behind them. And sometimes these are not entirely numerical. If your value statement is make each your decision as profitable as possible, then it's a completely different company and decision-making outcomes than the company which says that the companies which operate to benefit their societies tend to have better connection and brand image. So the question is, what is it that your business values and your people, we spoke about it, I think, some time ago as well, how to make this corporate responsibility and this traversal risk management an issue which is really connecting or important for everyone in the company. You
mean transverse risk?
Yes, sorry. Transverse risk and issues, I don't know, environmental or social issues, how to make them really influential or having impact on actual decisions. And value statements is a good tool for that. You speak loudly and you put it on paper that you believe that companies which take care of it are doing better in this regard or another. And then if a local decision maker comes with a solution which is really has positive impact on these issues, he cannot be trumped by someone who just says, oh, but it will cost money. Yes, it will cost money, but it will add value. In such a case, it's a making a difference between adding value and having a cost.
It actually reminds me of something I read recently on the Harvard Business Review. There was an article by Joe McKendrick and Andy Thuray about how AI isn't ready to make unsupervised decision. And you mentioned before about computational governance, and how really in our concept of general business federated governance, we've moved back from this computational concept, because a lot of decisions need to be based on values and not just numbers. The classic trolley problem. Obviously in business, hopefully we're not sending trolleys down tracks. But the concept is well known, so I won't go too deep into this. The value statements giving a certain principle into the decision-making process, rather than just a numerical delineation: X is less than, X is more than. It is a very important concept to bring in and to remember.
And it is something that should be decided on the central level. So
yes.
To summarize, if you want to create a well-working federated governance, first you need to have, Artur, first principle. I just want to repeat them a couple of times.
You need to bring it. You need to create it from the top. It needs to be supported from the top.
And second, you should let your central team work on the things which are really critical for the operations of the whole company, like policies or value statements, things which will give direction to decisions. Not.
I almost feel like you're examining me whether I still remember what I said 5 minutes ago. I'm not that old.
No, I'm checking if I remember them correctly, to be honest. the things that we wrote together a couple months ago.
So let's move to the third principle, and that is that expertise in resilience implementation should be provided centrally to support the business. So again, this is the third principle still states what the central team is responsible and accountable for. And that is provided the specialist knowledge. We talked about shared services. In this case, we focus on resilience, on risk management, but providing the expertise in it, not doing it centrally, but providing the expertise, the know-how, the support, such that the people on the ground can actually have they don't need to necessarily employ their own risk specialists. They don't need to employ their local chief risk officers, chief resilience operations officers, but they have the support. They have someone who they can ask, who can provide them the guidance on how they can implement the ideas that they have developed.
Absolutely. It's, as I mentioned, in computational federated governance, in data mesh, there is the whole idea of the platform, which serves as a, so to speak, fabric connecting different. I'm reluctant to say fabric because the data fabric is a bit different concept. Not just, sorry for this, but it's not exclusive to data mesh. It can be, data fabric can be an excellent technical solution enabling data mesh. There is a distinction which is a bit artificial. But
I think you're going too deep into data.
Yes,
again.
absolutely.
Let's keep it broad in the business level. So I think the key principle to mention here, and something that we stress very strongly in our article, that the specialists that are provided centrally should act only as advisors. They should act as supporters. They shouldn't take over the implementation. Otherwise, they will violate the second principle of the governance, which is that centrally provided services should only focus on general policies and value statements. They shouldn't cross that boundary.
However, when we are talking about this, that's why I wanted to go a bit into this data fabric and business fabric and compare a bit a business fabric to data fabric. Maybe it's not a perfect analogy, but the idea is that there are some initiatives which require these are good for everyone, and they are sometimes operational as well. So if it can't be done on the local level, but can be done on the global, if it concerns multiple, it's transverse. If it's transverse towards the whole company, it is the expertise should be, of course, limited to very often to, so to speak, internal consultancy or advice or mentoring or guiding. But there are some operations which cannot be done, like IT. That's why I'm coming to data, because it's a most obvious case. You don't want your data to be in silos. You also don't want some business expertise and business operations to be completely siloed. So what I'm saying is this rule is about expertise, not a call to completely silo all the business operations. So it's just that you need some.
You're jumping a bit to principle number 5. So let's go right to principle number 4 first, which is that basic unit of operational resilience planning should be defined at the business process level. And what is meant by that is that the business, as with data and data products, the business domain is best placed to know what data they can offer and what actually means. Here, by analogy, the business process is the best place to define the resilience requirements, the operational parameters. Therefore, going any higher would necessarily introduce, some consensus, some kind of watering down or
biases,
biases, which can be easily eliminated if you focus on the business process. And if you look at the principles of risk management that are, by any organization that professionally deals with business management training, they always focus on a business process and how business process analysis is the basic requirement for analyzing the risk parameters. So I think this is actually in agreement with most of the risk practitioners and shouldn't be a surprise to anyone.
We touch upon, I would say, the whole enterprise architecture thing, which will be covered in one of the upcoming episodes. There are, let's say, couple of ideas now taking making traction in the business environment on orientating and organizing businesses around business domains and making them semi-autonomous, or giving them a lot of responsibility and accountability, but with coming ability to take governance into their own hands. So business process, and in my humble opinion, following business domain, which is focused on given business process, is a good place to build resilience as well. It's resilience, I think, which maybe we should now, take a minute or two and explain why we focus so much on the resilience. Because somebody could say, but shouldn't we focus more on the profitability or any other descriptor of the processes? Why do we focus on resilience so much, Artur?
Resilience is a concept that goes for me beyond risk management, and that is classical risk management focuses on risk elimination, on risk mitigation, whereas resilience is a process that focuses on what happens after the stressor actually is applied to the process.
But that's a stressor. That's the point of view of the resilience versus risk management. But why shouldn't we focus on, I don't know, cost centers and say, let's say, shouldn't we bunch things by, I don't know, the person who is spending the most or the person who is bringing in the most? Why the resilience and ability to build up resilience should be high on our agenda? Why shouldn't resilience be added to, because the business process is a good unit, so to speak, to build resilience. But why do we care that it's a good unit to build resilience?
And it's a good point to build resilience also because it's cross-departmental. So a single business process can cross multiple business domains. That's why focusing there makes it actually, it doesn't make it everyone's concern. So it doesn't wash out the responsibility, but it makes it the concern of the right people. And why focus on resilience? Well, firstly, because we've seen in our practice that companies that have resilience built into their soul, their fabric, rather than added on, actually fare better. It's very good. It's very easy to kind of manage a business in good times. It's the challenge where the real value comes out in bad times. You're raising your hand. A millisecond after I started speaking, so obviously you want to tackle the subject. Please go on.
Yes, I just wanted to say that the sentence that you said, that the companies which have resilience built into their fabric is a classic, tend to fare better, is a classical value statement. Just an example of what we spoke 2 rules ago. This is something which, if somebody was thinking, like, can value statements be used in the real life? Isn't it just a buzzword and blabbering? As you can see, in our consulting, we have these value statements so ingrained that we use them in the actual conversation. So sorry, that's why I was raising my hand, not interrupting you.
Yeah, because I did it consciously, because this is a value statement that you need to really start with when you talk about operational resilience. And there is a big difference between having operational resilience at the forefront of your mind, where you're designing your governance, versus designing your governance and then thinking, okay, and now let's make it resilient as an afterthought. So this is why we talk when we talk about business architecture, enterprise architecture, where we're talking about governance, we're very often almost using resilience as a synonym, because one cannot exist in my mind without the other. Having this, coming back to the business process, having the business process as a unit, which is it's very different from looking at the business domain, because, as I said, business process can span multiple business domains. Preparing your operational resilience on the process level, this has been recognized in financial services as all the regulatory regimes which focus on resilience. They recognize the business process as the basic unit. It brings the right focus that along the business process you have multiple stakeholders taking over the actions, making the decisions. And they have to work in concert to ensure that there is proper governance and proper resilience of the whole flow. You mentioned before about siloing, and this brings us very nicely to the 5th rule, that resilience information should be shared and reused and shouldn't be siloed, which it comes almost naturally from rule 4. You cannot, if a process flow goes spans, crosses between business domains. You cannot put an informational barrier between them. And the same way, if you have a forum, not even a central forum, just a forum where several business domains meet, they need to share their governance information, their operational resilience information, their risk management information, such that they don't start almost working against each other in completely disparate directions in trying to achieve goals, which if they talk to each other, the goals could be synchronized and the effort to reach them could be synchronized. It's basically preventing anarchy, but not going into totalitarianism in your business governance, which is exactly the function of federation, which we are trying to achieve here.
I absolutely agree, and also you touched on another topic which is pretty interesting, which is different fora. Having a central, because this is something that I had to explain a couple of times. Having, let's say, the central unit accountable and responsible for providing central policies and value statements does not prohibit having central fora and, let's say, discussion places for business units. Such a central unit needs to work in close cooperation with multiple. They never should work in disconnection. It's not like they create these policies out of thin air. This is a grave error, and it can completely disrupt the operations and completely destroy the operations.
The classic example is a new CRO coming from somewhere else and saying, okay, now we're going to do things my way, forget what you've been doing, and suddenly everyone is lost.
Yes, it's so it is critical that there are, I don't know, centers of excellence or networks of excellence, as you named them just a couple of minutes ago, to have fora for the discussion of business owners of different units, and these fora should be listened to by any sane central governance unit. They should collect the feedback. It might be, especially in a big multinationals, it might be impossible to listen to each and everyone's complaint separately. But having this fora where some things can be clarified or some suggestions for modifications could be made, should be available for this local governance units to meet, talk, discuss, learn, express. It is critical. It is critical that there are spaces for communication for local business unit owners or people accountable for governance in them. If they are to stick to this centrally designed policies and governance, let's say, frameworks, there must be a place where they can discuss it, when they can, share what works and what doesn't, because maybe it's the implementation problem, not the policy problem.
And you know what's fascinating, that this flows nicely to Principle 6. It's almost like this whole framework makes sense, and one thing comes from another, because Principle 6 states that you should leverage existing components of resilience instead of replacing them with general practices. My goodness, it's exactly what you've been talking about. If people do something and it works for them, and it provides an effect which gives them that support, the resilience, it doesn't actually damage someone else. You shouldn't be replacing it just for sake of conformity and your own ego.
I think this rule was written by us to make sure that if there is an example central governance providing resilience, as I said, we often use resilience and governance in exchange. But if you have a central governance, it's not a good idea to throw it all away and now make a revolution. Revolution is not the most, I think, efficient way of introducing changes and ensuring continuity. So try to recognize what are really well-working elements or decisions made on this, let's say, governance chain. Find this cutting point, the threshold, which will be passed to, below which the elements will be passed to the local levels. Decide what you want to keep on the central level, but try to introduce at one go as little disruption as possible in one step. So
it's probably worth at this point mentioning something, another initiative that we run. So one of the training courses that we've designed and that we're providing to various companies is called grassroots risk management. The whole concept being that if you are a manager of your department, of your team, and you want to introduce better risk management practices, but you don't have the full support and you don't have the power to introduce them at a global level or your whole enterprise level, you can do that. You can refine your risk management practices within your team or your department. And this is exactly, if you grow this within your team, you nurture this, you have this operation at your level, designed and operating pretty nicely. The last thing you want is someone from global to say, no, we're now replacing it with something completely different. Forget what you've been doing. It would be soul destroying. It would be operation destroying. So this principle is designed to prevent this kind of thing and actually encourage local in the sense of smaller business domain managers to come out with their own initiatives, which improve the operation at their level, and without the fear that it will be thwarted by some big boss coming in and saying, "You nice work, but forget it."
And also this fora that I mentioned previously is a good space to share what works and what works and what doesn't.
Cross-pollination, absolutely.
So if somebody was able to create a, let's say, good and working for him framework, it doesn't have to be risk management. It may be, I don't know, cost saving, vendor selection, or whatever it is.
Any kind of innovation.
Whatever it is that is in the remit of the local business units, they should space and freedom to share and help others. This is again such responsibility for such a forum. They hopefully should be, let's say, self-forming in the world of software development. It is very popular that there are different communities of excellence,
self-organizing teams,
and so not only teams, but like self-organizing, I don't know, self-help, let's say, groups, almost therapeutic. Other business functions should also have it, but again, it might be another value statement provided by the central governance that companies which actively encourage and leave space for the local teams or leaders to learn, discuss, fare better, or better use their very people's potential. Because it might be the case that one of the teams happened to get some really good expert in some subfield of their domain, but his expertise could be and lessons learned and best practices could be transferred to other units, and ensuring that it may happen is critical. It is different I'm speaking so much about this fora because I know that most of the people asked what they like most about working from home is, okay, we have much fewer meetings and they take much less time and we can actually focus on work. So I want to make sure that I'm not encouraging pointless meetings. It's not about having, oh, Jesus, yet another meeting, I have to participate. It's about creating a space where people who have something to say and have lessons to learn can do it. So some of the rules were like when in some of the community meetings in the software development that I participated, there were prohibiting managers to participate. Like these are not managerial; these are, let's say, oriented towards
technical,
this all that technology, and so we don't want to make it any more organized or following somebody else's agenda. We just want to meet and talk. So if you're a high manager, make sure that some of your people who actually do work and they not only manage work of others, but they actually do work, they have an opportunity to speak to other people who do work. Try to encourage creating the spaces.
We should in one of future episodes actually discuss the principles of effective meetings because and general kind of effective work practices, because this is some, psychologically also this is a very interesting topic. But I think at this point we should go to the final seventh principle which we've defined, which is to encourage broader thinking, going not only beyond departmental boundaries, but also beyond organization. We've purposefully put a bit of, ESG, social, environmental responsibility in it. And in this case, ESG actually does have a meaning, I think, because you're not encouraging some meaningless policy making that will look good, but you require you're encouraging essential value statement definition that will guide the further kind of decision making. Think about your immediate environment, your immediate team department, but also think cross departmentally within your organization, but also go beyond your organization to your community, into your government, your environment. Think how it impacts the bigger picture in formulating your specific policies and procedures. And this needs to be done mostly centrally in creating those value statements, but it's beneficial to do it also locally. Have this big practice, bigger thinking, even on a local level.
No, absolutely. It's an element of resilience building in a wider sense. It might seem, let's say, why should I invest into it? Thought everyone. It's something that may help your organization by helping others, by setting up a good example.
It wraps nicely to principle number one, because that tone is in our model organization. The tone is driven from the top. Top management encourages this kind of thinking. There is it's firmly stated that this kind of thinking will not be repressed. It will be actually rewarded rather than punished. Then it encourages this broader thinking, information sharing, resilience building on a local level, and ultimately in any function. The person who knows best what is required is the person who actually does the work. So, and not to be too kind of political, but maybe this is why communism is not really a big success, is because trying to centrally decide what kind of hammer your worker needs, or how they should be holding the drill. Trust your experts.
Absolutely, and that's what it drills down to. I think, speaking about holding a drill, there are goals, and centrally, there's a requirement for some things to be decided centrally, and these shall be decided centrally. And there are things which should be decided at the level where the actual work happens, and these should be left to the people who actually do the job. And this is like very common sense.
Which is why it's worth stressing again that federation does not mean anarchy, it doesn't mean revolution. It means a healthy balance between central governance and local expertise.
And I think that's the key takeaway. The rules that we provided you are meant to help you, guide you to introduce it. It's not set in stone, but it should help you. But it's for you and the people in your organization to make it really work.
As stated at the beginning, the whole article will be linked in the notes to the episode. I think this is all we have time for. Let's hope it was of use to someone.
Thank you for listening. We mentioned in this episode the One Thing podcast. Check out their website for a surprisingly simple approach to achieving more.
Also, we recommend Josh Bersin's website, where you'll be able to read some interesting articles or listen to a podcast about the HR perspective on governance and leadership. As usual, all links to the references will be available in the notes to this episode.
Also, don't miss the next one, where we'll be talking to Dr. Tushar Hazra, business and technology executive, entrepreneur and consultant, principal at Epitome One, about his experiences in consulting company CEOs on enterprise architectures.
Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or visit bdr.show to find out more about the future episodes and guests. You can also check out cognition.llc for more information on Cognition shared solutions, our services, and other events hosted by us.
For now, it's thank you from myself, your friendly neighborhood data guy, Dr. Marian, and my co-host, Artur.
Thank you.